So one of the things that is kind of personal to me in my spiritual journey is I pretty much learned to express myself in what we call sharing circles or in individual coaching sessions. But a lot of it was there's value in a sharing circle because there's a group of people there and we pass like a talking stick or fan around and everyone would share what's in their heart, or there'd be a specific question that was asked if we were doing a workshop or a retreat. It's just like, so what is most important to you? And then that would go around and we'd all share it. So when I was in my early 20s, and I was a dude in his early 20s, and I wasn't real great at sharing my heart, you could say. And so I really learned how to be honest and how to be, genuine and sincere and be real and to speak what's going on and talk about what I feel in these sharing circles, and so but what I learned is the hard way, and I'll tell a funny story here in a minute, is that so it's actually what I learned, it's kind of a specific kind of sharing, because what happens is you kind of I would stumble onto like maybe a wounded part of me. It's like sometimes we talk about being, triggered or activated, is like I would be giving as I was healing in these ceremonies, in these sharing circles, and I was, they're led by a shaman, so I was healing myself in some of the wounds. And so some of what you do when you share in a sharing circle, I would be like giving voice to the wounded parts of me. So it might be this kind of neurotic share, or this kind of angry share, or it's just not fair share, or you just don't understand. It's like it's giving voice to this, you could say, this wounded part of me, you could say this wounded inner child or whatever, at various ages in the healing process. And so when you're sharing in sharing circle, you're sometimes doing that. Other times you're not. Sometimes you're in your strong self, or you're in your, you're in different parts of yourself. And so it's a specific kind of sharing that varies, several specific types of sharing that happen in sharing circle. And so then, I would go into, say, a relationship, and the gal my girlfriend at the time would just say, so what's going on? And it's just like, and I would hear like, oh, I'll just share my heart like I do in the sharing circle, right? Because in the sharing circle, everyone thought I was really cool because I was real. They're like, oh yeah, you were so sincere, Mike, and it really touched me what you said. So it's like, I must be on the right track. So I'll just share what's in my heart. And of course, it didn't go as well, because I would be maybe giving voice to something that was wounded, and it wasn't appropriate to share that wound at that time. And so I would maybe go on this rant, or it would be just sharing. It wouldn't necessarily, I didn't often do it in like kind of a confrontive sort of way, but, and I would even use the nonviolent communication. When you said this, I felt this way. But she would just kind of look at me like, whoa, like I didn't want to know all that. It was like a total overshare of this neurotic like rant, or this wounded rant. And that part of us, that wounded part of us, when we get in touch with it, it's got all this trapped energy down there. So it wants to act out, and then there's this, I think Freud came up with that term. It wants to act out. In other words, it wants to take action on the wounds and the injustices that have been put onto that part of us. So it's kind of got this WTF, and it's not fair, and you shouldn't do this, and it's got that energy. Even if you dress it up with NVC or whatever, it still has that energy, And so it, like when you're on the other side of that, it's fine if you're in sharing circle. Everyone knows that you're healing. But if you're like on a date, or you're talking to your significant other and you're like start sharing that way, it's like it's way too much. And that part, and then if we start acting out, it wants justice. And so it might want vindication. It might want people to pay. It might want to confront people. It wants to, like, why the hell would you say this? And don't you know it hurts my feelings? And it's like this, and so it has this acting out energy, and it just has no business. It's not productive in a conversation with your significant other, like rarely ever. Now after you heal that issue, you're no longer triggered or activated, and you've done some healing work, and you're no longer in the acting out phase of your healing, and you no longer need to speak it and to express it and to speak from that wounded place. It's now further along in the healing process. Then it becomes something that you can share with people because it doesn't have the angsty energy associated with it. And so it just is like, then you can just kind of say it, and you're not triggered when you're saying it. You can stay whole, you can stay intact, and just say, this is the thing. When I used to get really bummed when people would say that, but now I realize that it's blah, 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 blah. And then it can be something that's shared, but it's rarely a good thing to share, obviously, when you're triggered, when you're activated, when you're acting out, when you're in this wounded place. It's not, it is appropriate to share it in your sharing circle or in your therapy session or in your coaching session or with your friend that is kind enough to listen to that when you're having coffee with her. It's great to share then and give it a voice and let that energy work itself out and get it out so you can release the energy and you can heal the trauma and the wound and whatever else. But it's not great to share with a significant other, with a child, with a parent, with your boss, with your friend, with your client. And I think some of us that just, when we first learn to open our heart, we just have like no filter. It's just like, what's going on? It's like, oh, well, did you know I was abandoned? And they're just like, whoa, dude, like, I don't want to hear all that. They're nice. They don't say that, but we can definitely overshare. And so it's really important to just think about, when you share things, is share the things that's appropriate to share in the context of that conversation. And especially if it's a meta process, like if I'm angry if my girlfriend said something and it's brought up the wound, it didn't wound me, by the way, it activated the wound that was already in me, then that is not a good thing to share with her until that's really, really well healed. Because it's going to have, even if I use, again, nonviolent communication, I use all the I statements, and it's still going to have an edge to it because there's part of me that wants vindication. It wants to know, why the fuck would you do that to me? And that's, so anyway, you get the point. I'm being redundant. And so that just is a little reminder of watch out for overshares and just watch out for just sharing more than what the situation it really is appropriate for the situation. But do find somewhere to share that stuff so you can heal it. And so that is my video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great week. And it's still January, so it's a good time to look at these things. It's a good time to heal things. Hope you all find a venue where you can share these things and give these parts of yourself a voice without, wreaking havoc with the people that are around you trying to love you. And I will see you in a week.